Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of Keep It in Real Estate with your hosts, Colin Schwartz and
Chris Palmer.
Chris. How you doing today, buddy?
Phenomenal. Super stoked about this today. One of the guys that started it all. And that's I'm going to leave it there right now, but I'm going to leave it there for right now. We'll get into it, but I'm really excited.
No, let's give a little bit of background about our guest.
We're jumping right in. So who we have here today is David Crum. This is super exciting for me because Dave was actually my boss at my law firm for the last 4 years. Certainly, we'll get into a lot of different things of why that was beneficial for me, hopefully beneficial for him, but also helped it propel me into being an entrepreneur. And I hate admitting that. I won't cry right now, but it's serious. And the fact that not only did he kind of light that fire in me, but also allow me to do that while also being an attorney is huge. And we'll obviously hear great things about being an entrepreneur on this as well. So I'm really excited for this.
No, that's awesome. So where do we want to jump in, guys?
Man. Let's get it. Mr. David Crum, good to have you on.
Hey, man, this is the highlight of my week, maybe the highlight of my day, which shows you how pathetic my day is.
We are getting 6 to 10 inches of snow, so that is also pretty exciting.
Yeah, let's get this baby wrapped up. No, it's great to be here, Chris. I've been wanting to do your show for a while, so I'm glad we could make it work out.
This is great. This will be cut out, so don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about looking at the cameras.
I'm not.
Oh, yeah, you keep looking over there. You just don't want to look me in the eyes?
I just like to look around.
Okay, but trust me, people always like looking over there when we're talking. It's like, don't worry, it'll fucking figure it out. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, back on Kyle's a dude. So, let's talk about a little bit about our relationship, how we got started here. So, I will start this for sure. I started practicing law in 2013, practiced at a firm in town here. I won't name the firm, but they're terrible. They did give me what I'm sincerely thankful for. They threw me to the wolves and said, hit the ground sprinting and go figure it out. Not a lot of teaching, not a lot of guidance. And I figured it out, and I'm thankful for that opportunity. They hired me out of the military, and I know you have something about that, but which I'm thankful for. I think that was a saving grace for me. It was in 2017 is when I met Dave here, and he hired me into his firm. Dave started a law firm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, New Mexico Legal Group. And then because he's from Omaha, he actually opened his second firm in Omaha, aproposly named Nebraska Legal Group. And I had a chance to be one of the first few attorneys there. And so that's a good intro there, except for the phone call there. That's a good intro, and I'd love to hear your opinion about kind of how you got started and how we met.
Sure. We we had come to Nebraska Legal Group was my second firm that we greenfielded, meaning we just started it from scratch. We didn't buy another firm, and we thought we had a great business plan and some good people on the team. We were losing about $40,000 a month when we started. We knew that was going to happen, but it was still pretty shocking. And then what ended up happening was one of the 2 anchor attorneys that we had hired turned out to be a complete lunatic. And so we had to fire her. She was so odd that when I fired her, she said, okay, I'll think about it.
I love that story.
Interesting.
Like, what? So, yeah, so then Chris had been on our radar for a while, and then we started talking, and one of the most hilarious interviews I've had. I've got some things to say about that later, maybe. And so he came on the team. He actually was our number 1 biller out of about 32 lawyers in the first couple years. So, however, I knew that you weren't going to last. I knew it the day we hired you. And we had that discussion, and our ops director at the time said, who cares? Like, he'll bill like crazy for 2 or 3 years. And she was right. So, yeah, but the whole transition worked out really great for everybody.
What do you mean I wasn't going to last?
It was so obvious that you were, had big plans, and that was cool with me. So I said, he's going to do something else probably within the next couple of years.
So that's interesting. How do you keep somebody like that motivated? Because you know that you want to keep them around. You know you want to get as much possible, but you have to create an environment that's going to allow that individual to grow. Otherwise, they're just going to get out immediately if they're not going to see that. They need to be pushed still, too. They need to have that inspiration, I guess, to keep going. So what kind of, I guess, how'd you motivate, but also the culture? I mean, it sounds like that was a big piece of your organization.
Well, I have a policy that I tell every high-level person that I hire, I'm never going to quash your entrepreneurial spirit. And so sometimes we can align with them, and then sometimes we just can't. And so Chris will tell you that, if what you need to do doesn't align with me and you have big plans, that's perfectly fine with me, as long as we can work together to transition out of it. So an example that I have is, we hired a very talented marketing director in Denver, and I knew this guy was going to get tired of just promote, even though it's a big job. We have 75 employees with U.S. legal groups. I knew he wanted to do something more than that. So we would have these alignment meetings. And what he really wanted to do was run his own marketing agency. And so we started analyzing what that looked like. And, we were spending probably $100,000 in third-party marketing services. Even though we had a marketing director, it made sense that we formed our own marketing agency. So out of that conversation, we spawned a new business. He's a 50-50 partner. And that's really what I cultivate in my employees. And sometimes you just can't. Like with Chris, we knew that it was probably never going to align. And I'll talk about that later, about when we made that decision and how that was a really collaborative thing that we did that was great for both of us. So that's how we do it.
Awesome.
We that's awesome. I didn't know that story about the marketing, but it makes complete sense. I knew some of the details, but that's honestly what we do. I mean, we've started so many subsidiary businesses, and some of them are still successful, and some they kind of fizzled out. But we certainly didn't take. It didn't ruin our time with other businesses, but that's what we want. I mean, if someone we're working with or somebody who's working for us has an idea to form another business, as long as it aligns, we're always pressing that.
Yeah, I tell everybody and tell all my employees and anybody I work with that I'm going to pay you the most salary I can pay you possible for your position, but it caps out at some point. It's your duty, it's your job to build wealth, and I want to promote that any way possible, any sort of skill set. If you can come work with us and you can find real estate and I can help enable that, if we can partner on those items, that's what I want, because that's going to bring you true happiness and secure your family. The salary, that pays the bills, that gets you the house, the apartment, whatever that is, that pays for the cars, that pays for the food. But really, to take it to that next level, you have to have just those little bit of entrepreneurial skills and traits, and you need to combine those. So that's awesome that you did that and you promoted that.
When you find people on your team that are truly talented and motivated, that's what you have to do. And like I said, sometimes it just doesn't work. But when it works, it's incredible.
Have you read Multipliers?
I don't think so.
Oh, I just read it for the first time
I should have brought a copy
last week, and I'm not fluffing your pillow. I literally thought about you during this time because I just read it last week, and that's exactly what they say. They say you hire the best talent you can, and if they're so awesome that they leave in 3 or 4 years, first off, your business succeeded for 3 or 4 years. But also, when they leave and get an unbelievable job next, or they start their own thing next, how good does that make your business look? Now that's the business to go to where you can propel. And then I thought about Apple and Google and PayPal. Think about how many ex-board members of these large companies have gone on to start their own companies. Well, then now everybody wants to work for Apple, Google, PayPal. So Multipliers is a good example of kind of what you're doing, and you haven't even read the book yet.
Yeah. Well, I think this was a great example, and I would encourage people to listen very closely to what we're saying in terms of how you exited, because, there's this trend now where people are kind of going behind the back of the people, they're leaders, and they're doing their little deal, and then they spring it on you at the last minute. So, I mean, if you have this collaborative thing, you and I talked about this. We had been talking about your real estate. You were very transparent about it. I did not want to lose you, the highest biller on my team, and a leader on the team. I did not want to do that. But I'll tell you, the minute when I decided that needed to happen, I was working out here, and you came up on a podcast on my phone. And I was like, what is this? So then I started, it wasn't this one. It was, you were a guest on someplace. And I was like, he is so passionate, so good at this. And that's when then we started saying, what is the transition time? And everyone needs to understand, you're not walking away from some shit job. You had all the freedom you wanted, a ton of money, good benefits, the whole thing. This isn't a guy living in his parents' basement, figuring out, I'm going to buy flip a house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that. And so that's a lesson to people. And it's a lesson to, if you can be collaborative, you can both. And then we handled it in a way that allowed me to transition and you to transition at the same time. No hard feelings. And here we are, aligning on other stuff.
Right.
And
the skill sets that you can continue to build at those businesses or at those corporations or those jobs that you work at. I think of all my previous jobs and all the skills that I gained. And my boss knew I was going to be out for about a year. And, it came sooner than he wanted, but he was totally for it because he saw the vision. He saw what I wanted to do. But I worked my ass off when I was there. And I know Chris did the same thing too. He took it very seriously. And it was because of your leadership that you were promoting him. You wanted him to get better and get the most out of life. You still wanted your business to run well, but you were still giving him all the resources. And I saw that day in and day out. And now he has a great skill set. I mean, law is not, I know you get confused. Everybody's like, Chris is the attorney. He can draft the legal docs. Not quite true in family law. But his skill set transitions over to communication styles and ability to work through legal issues from a very broad sense that you just can't get anywhere else if you would have just said, I'm just going to half-ass this job and get out of here and not give it full effort.
That helped. We have 3 attorneys we pay routinely. And so I'm obviously the ones talking with them and looking through the document stuff. So certainly the background helps, but yeah, I'm not the one drafting those things. We didn't get into this. Can you tell us about how you got started? Why, where, what you did? What'd you do?
Oh, I got started because I couldn't get a job. I graduated from law school in one of the worst markets, to get a job, interviewed at the DA's office, got to the final round there. That didn't work out. Nothing worked out. So I just opened my own practice. I was 26, had no fucking clue what I was doing. And then we built that. And then once I really understood direct response marketing and we got into some other specific things, that business exploded. Then I got bored. I was making good money, not working, not taking cases anymore. So I said, okay, I was going to coach attorneys. Then I said, that's a pain in the ass. I'm going to do what I would coach someone to do. And I'm going to go to my affinity market. I'm going to go to the Midwest where I understand the people there. I understand how to talk to them. I know where to put my office, and then from there, it just kept going. We did that. And then we did Colorado. We're going to do Kansas City this year. We're opening Colorado Springs. Yeah, we're just blowing up. And now we're into providing the same marketing services that my team provides to my law firms. We now provide to other divorce firms. And it's like no extra work for us because it's everything that we're testing, everything that we roll into their campaigns. It's already tested, it's proven to work, and it's everything that we use. So it blows theirs up, and it's a lot easier for us to execute those services. That's exciting.
What do you mean by affinity market?
Yeah, an affinity market is the people that are most closely aligned with kind of who you are. So the big mistakes that I see, and I hope we can talk about some general entrepreneurship because these things are important to real estate, and I think people can get a lot more out of understanding these principles than necessarily understanding the real estate component, which they do need to do. But affinity market is working with those people that you can directly communicate with in an instant. So where I see big mistakes, and I've been in a lot of high-level mastermind marketing groups, and people will come in and let's say, the example I was telling you the other day, this kid, he had multiple successful businesses in cleaning services, all these service industries. Now he decides he's going to, do this marketing agency. And you know who he's going to target? Plastic surgeons. And I said, what does that have to do with what you're doing? He's like, well, that's where all the money is. So we're like, we all think it's a bad idea, but nobody's going to talk, nobody can talk people out of that stuff that are, and he's a motivated dude. But so he comes back 3 months later. We're like, hey, how's that going? Terrible. Why? Plastic surgeons don't have many pain points. They don't work on Fridays. They make a shitload of money. They don't want any more patients.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because you don't maybe understand that market. So yeah, you got to work with your affinity group when you can. I don't know how that it translates to real estate, but
I mean, it does for us. I mean, that's how our 2 biggest businesses for Levin Wealth and Liquid Lending Solutions it's built off of investors. So it's important that we have that rapport and relationship and kind of the background and the wants or the needs of why investing. And I understand there's more to an affinity group, but that certainly helps. It's a lot different than us going out and making our investors only financial advisors who only invest in the stock market. There's not a connection there when it comes to diversified portfolios and unique assets to invest in. So that makes complete sense to me.
Yeah. So what I would tell the people when they're looking at their business or a business that they're going to start, I think there's some rules. There's some rules that I at least use now that I didn't before. And so let me give you an example. So I'm coming out this year with an information product that's already for divorce, that's already done. It's already in the can. It just needs to be basically marketed and the site needs to be built. This is a digital product for people that are going through a divorce, one, to guide them through it, even if they have a lawyer with inside information. And then there's another component that's just teaches them when they handle their own case. That's 85% of people are pro se in this country. So this is everything they need to know. What should you wear to court? What is hearsay? Like, why can't I just, say what my neighbor said about the case? And so this meets the criteria that I'm talking about, which is big mistake, local market. Every idea should be national or international, right? It has got to be highly leveraged. It can't be you've got to do everything. Highly leveraged, and it has to be scalable, and it has to be, if possible, to your affinity group. So my product, which is called Divorce Declassified, I know how to talk to these people. I already know the language. It's completely scalable. Once it's shot, they just log in, pay. I'm getting paid overnight, waking up, collecting my money, and it's scalable. I can scale it all across the United States and in some cases in other countries as well.
That's awesome. I don't know if I've heard of that.
No, not at all. That's really interesting in that did you come into this when you started, when you got out of college, were you like, hey, I'm going to go practice law, I'm going to be on Law and Order, or did you always have this business mindset? Because everything that you're approaching is really on a scalable sense. It's not of like, how do I get a job? It's more of like, how do I get out of a job and produce a product? Does that sound correct?
No, I mean,
You still working a lot?
I'd love to say that. I was 3 years old and I had a lemonade stand.
You make it sound easy. You sound great.
My father was a plumber. He was a union plumber, and then he eventually bought a plumbing business. And he never got bigger than one guy. And my mother answered the phone. It was a fucking fiasco. She had little pieces of paper all over the desk, like no organization. It was just horrifying. So, and he just never wanted to scale. And I saw what that meant. Like when he started his business, that was the end of fun for me. We didn't go fishing anymore. We didn't go hunting anymore. He sold his boat. Like it was working all the time. I was like, I don't want that. I'm going to go work for some big, cushy law firm and, have that kind of really high, lifestyle. And then I realized that wasn't what I wanted at all, that I was never going to fit in once I figured out what that meant.
I can't imagine you in that position.
And part of it was just that, again, I just wanted a job when I was 26.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work out that way. So I didn't really have a choice. I had to start making money. And then, then I got into it and I loved practicing. But then after 15 years, I was like, this just makes zero sense. So I literally closed my practice on the same day. I had a DWI case in the morning.
You were the attorney for that case.
Yeah, I was doing criminal defense and divorce. I went in, the divorce case the DWI got dismissed. Then that afternoon, we wrote the paperwork on a final settlement and a divorce, and that was it. And I walked away. And other than every once in a while a pro bono case or something, I haven't practiced, for about 15 years.
You pulled a Peyton Manning. You won your last event, and then you retired.
Style.
Good call. Good call.
So we had talked earlier about this. Explain to us the brute force investment phase.
Brute force investment.
Oh, yeah.
All right, baby. Well, I was young and I didn't have a lot of money and I wanted to start investing in some leveraged product. And what I had discovered, this was quite a while ago. This was after the 2008, 2009, crash of everything. Once we came out of that, what I was noticing was the real estate where we were living in New Mexico was just like dirt cheap. And the financing was dirt cheap. And I didn't know anything really about real estate. And so I started looking at this and doing the math. And I was like, I can buy a property at market price with traditional financing and cash flow it. Like, I don't even need to know anything about how to do this other than how to market the property once I buy it. So that's essentially what we did. And one of the interesting techniques was we picked a part of the city where we wanted to be. And then we just had a broker put us on the MLS and gave the price range. Well, the low end of the price range started triggering short sales. So we ended up just buying a bunch of short sale property. Now we this is not what you guys advise. I realize that we're putting 20% down and all of that, but we're renting we're financing for 2.9% on these properties. So we bought 6 properties
That's awesome.
And so that works for me.
Oh, in Albuquerque.
And I just call it the brute force because there's no style to it. There's no skill to this. This is just like find it, buy it, rent it. The skill is just managing it and cash flowing it. But I have a team of people, at my practices that handle that stuff.
Right.
And so that's not a good model for everyone, but I do like the single family home. Like I understand it. And if I don't have to do the work, it's fine for me. Those properties are all coming into cash in the next few years. So I'm just going to have cash flow.
So you still own those?
Oh, yeah.
Are you from Albuquerque?
No, I grew up here.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up here, went to law school out in D.C., and then moved to New Mexico.
Okay.
And now I primarily live in Denver and Castle Pines.
Right. I grew up in Belen, New Mexico.
Oh, dude.
Beautiful. Belen.
street.
Belen.
That's rough.
It's a special place down there. So
I've had a lot of cases down there.
yeah, I bet.
And the judge is not nice.
It's an interesting area. I think there was 55 gangs for a town of 13,000. But yeah. Albuquerque's nice.
How far is Belen
beautiful
from Albuquerque?
Was it like 90 minutes?
No, it's like 30 minutes, but I used to drive like 95.
Yeah.
You wish it was 90 minutes away.
No, I went down there. I got in a beef. Like I used to fight with that judge down in Belen all the time.
Probably actual fist fight. I wouldn't.
He's like, you want to take this outside? I'm like, yeah, this is a fight.
Oh man, that brings back stories.
That judge is probably gone, I'm guessing, by now.
No, what was his name? Gosh, I don't want to bring it up. I live next to a judge, and oh man, I've got some stories. I think it's the same. It has to be the same one.
I was gonna say its first name, but I better not. No. Mild it to me.
Okay. So, you explained brute force, and I think you're kind of poo-pooing that because sometimes you just need to jump into it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem is that, we were talking recently about like what books we're reading and what we're doing, podcasts and stuff. And like, to be honest, when I started, I was on every podcast. I was listening to YouTube and every book and everything I could. And it's got to the point now where not only do I not have time, but it's like, how many real estate books can I read? And people can get into this, what's that, paralysis by analysis?
Analysis paralysis, where it's just nonstop. You learn everything about everything and you do nothing.
You don't do anything.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same way. I told Chris the other day when we were kind of prepping for this, I've now switched all my reading to fiction. Like I love, reading, and I'm the same way. And I think I heard Gary Vaynerchuk talking about this. He's like, how many fucking books are you going to read, dude? Just start doing so. And I feel like I have so much that I've learned to execute. I don't need anything else.
Yeah, so that brute force investing, just jump in. And once you feel relatively comfortable, just jump in.
And I would also give another rule, which is have no qualms about misleading your spouse on this stuff. Because my wife was, when I was in this frenzy of buying real estate, and she said, please promise me you're not going to buy another property. And I was like, I can't promise that.
Don't worry.
Yeah,
we bought a condo in Seattle too. We bought a condo out there, and she goes, we're not going to buy anything, right? I'm like, no, we're just looking. I mean, we're just looking.
Yeah.
We bought a property that day.
But I'm sure after she got in there and saw the view, it changed her mind.
Look, it's okay to do this, but you've got to perform.
Yeah.
And then once you perform, then your spouse is saying, oh, okay, I trust this.
That's how Shivani was when I was, she's like, my whole family. They're like, hold on. You're getting paid more than you've ever had in your life. You have a good job, a good boss, a good location, a good everything. You're now 9 years into practice. You're pretty good at what you do. You're going to quit and just try to make your own money and like figure out and like, well, just, you got to trust me. And it took like 3 years because Colin and I, we didn't take a dime out of any of our businesses for 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
And so that whole time, Shivani's like, when do these things that take away from the family in our life, when do they start making money? Just trust me. And finally, when those checks start coming in, that's when people are like,
Yeah, you sell something or it's like, come on, baby, it's debt paid down. Look at all this. Look at all the tax savings I have. They don't care about that. They don't care.
No.
Care less.
No.
That new bag. Hey, so the other thing I wanted to talk about was kind of the growth mindset, because I think that's probably the most important thing. And you'll see me just sort of like a broken record saying growth is 90% mental and 10% mental. It's all mental. And, that's what we find when we're stuck. It's usually because of fear or, we don't know what this is going to look like. And so I work with, in my marketing agency, not only do we market, but I coach other attorneys. And I'm coaching one guy right now in California. This dude's on fire. I mean, and I've just seen him change. He finally had so much pain that he just couldn't take anymore. So now he's executing actually my business plan and just blowing up. And so
what are some of the key traits of those individuals? Like what type of mindset do they have to get into to be able to start executing? Like what were some of the changes you saw with him?
Some of it is just having a little faith, right? And I think when they see me or they see somebody that they can model, then that gives them the faith. Right? I think Chris was doing the same thing. And you look at people and like, if this moron can do it, I can certainly do it. And so, there's this quote by Martin Luther King where he says, it is not necessary to see the entire staircase. Just take the first step in faith.
Nice.
And I love that. And so that's what I see. That first they see that it can be done. And then secondly, you just mitigate downside risk. I mean, when you add more attorneys, I do a break-even analysis. How many hours do they have to bill to pay their salary? And it's so minimal.
Yeah.
So the whole difference, I see fantastic lawyers that are like a one-dude shop, two-dude shop, and they just, for 30 years, they say, I really should hire some more associates, and they never do. So mostly it's just will. It's like a sense of will to grow, and that's the difference.
I think you changed the game a little bit in Omaha, and I'm serious because when you, just 2017, when you opened the firm, I mean, I think there's like kind of like a pompous environment of attorneys, like, I'm not going to advertise. I'm not going to think about social media. Like
Where did you go to school?
Yeah, I'm going to ride the coattail of I'm an attorney, and just seeing how forward thinking you were has changed the game. It's hilarious now because like a lot of firms in Omaha are now doing what clearly you were the first one to do. I'm serious. And then I think another thing that's great about this is also you're so transparent with your employees. I think that was the biggest thing for me when I left that other firm. I had some of the same accolades that Dave, that you were talking about as far as being high up along the, I got second overall in the whole country or whatever, and I got like a $10,000 bonus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was the hardest year of my life. Like, what's going on here? And I'll never forget one of the first few weeks that I was with you, Dave, you were just like, you're talking to everybody on the team. Here's the money we make. Of course, you're not talking about the exact amount that goes in your pocket, but here's the money you make. If we just do this, we'll make this much more money. You already know how much you're going to make. It's this percentage of how much you bill. Like that transparency with your employees is huge if you want to continue to surround yourself with people who are going to succeed. Because if you're always in the dark about what the hell's going to be next, then you hit a brick wall pretty quickly.
I'm a huge fan of just incentivizing performance. So we incentivize almost everything. And that is something that has really paid off for us. So, if you bill a certain target, you know how much money you're going to get, and we're happy to share. And it's not bullshit. It's like when the rising tide raises all boats. I really believe that.
Yeah.
And so in Nebraska, we've only been open for five years from a dead zero stop. We have 10 lawyers now, and we haven't lost anyone except for a person that we fired. And so to me, that means my model, either I'm screwing myself by paying too much, or my model is working well. So we choose to believe that the model is working well.
So that goes back to hiring. How do you choose these people? Because for transparency, there's some people that can handle the truth, and there's some people that can't handle the truth. I think I've been told that before. What are some of your practices when hiring? How are you finding this talent and just knowing these individuals are the right fit? It sounds like you cultivate. It sounds like you're finding these performers throughout the process, but hiring's a big deal. I mean, once you're getting married to them, you're bringing them into your little cocoon. You're telling them, this is what we do and this is how we do it.
Yeah. Couple principles I apply. If people listening to this haven't read, or you guys haven't read Good to Great by Jim Collins, it's a fantastic book. It applies to everyone, every business. And what he says is, hey, forget about hiring, forget about motivating your employees, forget about it. Hire internally motivated employees. So that's one of the things we do. And then the other thing is my team has been trained to always be recruiting. So the attorneys are, even when we're not hiring, they're telling me, hey, there's this person at this firm, and they're an up and comer, and they're really good, and they maybe feel like they could make a move. And then when it's time, then I get to go in and execute. And then I've got some pretty standard stuff that I send out to people when I'm recruiting. If I'm recruiting an attorney, I'll say something like, Chris Pomerleau suggested I reach out to you. and then they'll open that for sure. And then I've got a quick sales pitch so they know like what it's about. And I just tell them, no pressure. Let's just talk and let's just have a conversation. And we've been hugely successful.
Especially when you use my name.
And when I use Chris's name, we also target, I'm going to say his former firm. It's Cordell and Cordell.
I didn't say that.
I've stolen so many fuckers from that.
Well, it's not
the
hard.
thing I do is when I go into a market, I look and I say, how many attorneys does Cordell have here? And if they have a lot, I'm like, okay, I know I can outperform these guys.
Yeah.
And then I go and look at who's on their staff because I know I can take their staff because they don't pay well.
Yeah.
They don't take care of people.
No.
So, that's the other thing because we pay 1 to 1.5 to 2 times more than our competitors.
Wow.
I can recruit anybody I want, essentially.
3 of the people working for you right now, I know it's specifically because I made that intro and I was joking about my name. I'm saying you sincerely listened to what I had to say and you gave them the time of day and it worked. 4 of them, actually.
And you've got to have reputable people on your team too. They know like you're a high performer, so they know you're happy. Now they know you. I have an entree to them. And we do that with paralegals. We do a lot of that.
That's
so, and then we just have, I have like really marketing based ads that I run, to recruit as well. So, but recruiting right now is, for me, it's not the marketing, it's not the clients, it's not the cash flow, it's talent. Talents, anybody in the legal space right now is fighting that.
like the ability to find good talent.
Good talent. Yeah.
How do you define talent?
I mean, like I said, they've got to be motivated. We look for personality match first. I don't even want to know what their experience is. I want to know, is this someone who's going to match on the team and that I can work with? And then only then do I look to see if they have the skill set.
Right.
And I'm looking at, I've been spending a lot more time now looking at their background, where they grew up. You can learn a lot. Tell me where you grew up, what that was like, and what kind of values do you think came out of your childhood, or what did your parents teach you? How, and
These are the questions you're asking in interviews?
yeah, there's just certain,
That's really good.
There's certain things, I mean, that speak much more loudly that you've done in your background than you're going to tell me and bullshit me in your interview. Everybody's going to say they're motivated, they're organized, they're tough. And then, but I remember one person we hired, she was doing law school at night on a 90-mile round trip.
So you're like, this girl's tough.
This girl's tough.
Grit.
Yeah. And, it's those things. And they just sort of toss it off like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I grew up in Alaska and I had to do this and that. We hired someone who grew up in Alaska and we're like, oh, this person got some stick to it.
No,
I mean, this isn't easy.
Yeah.
And so, and that's proven to be a really good sort of barometer.
I wish it was more like that because there are so many people who, I mean, I don't know about anymore after you've been, in your 30s, 40s, where trying to get a job, but so many 20-year-olds, they'll get passed over because they're not in the top 2% of their graduating class, which their graduating class is like half school and half parties. It's like, who's going to last at your job? And I wish they looked at more of a totality of like, this person's a good fit. And it's really hard to find those. I wish more people looked at that.
Yeah. I mean, when we were recruiting in Denver, I had 2 young female attorneys that came in. They interviewed together. They applied together. We were looking for...
Is this like stepbrothers?
Yeah. I was like, is this a package deal? Is this... It was hilarious. But they came in and they were 29 and 30 years old to start a major practice in a super competitive market in Denver. And we went through these interviews and I was just like, I can't say no to this. Like, I asked for this, I asked the universe and it's here. And if I don't hire these 2, I'm going to have some serious consequences.
And they're still there.
Consequences. And they have been phenomenal. I mean, and the youth of it gets me energized and, it's just a great relationship. And
that's so key. So I'm thinking about an assistant I just hired, and it is all the background stuff. Like, sure, great pedigree, great job beforehand, but getting to talk to her. Oh, you sing national anthems for the Dallas Mavericks. Oh, you're flipping these houses on the side. Oh, you have a team of VAs helping you like execute on all these other things while you're running these different businesses. Oh, you have children as well. You've built all this by yourself. Like, those are the things that most people don't talk about, but those are the ones that actually show the true character of the individual, especially when times get tough.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that.
She's And she's phenomenal, by the way, because last night I'm working up till 11 o'clock at night, and she's responding to every email like 5 minutes after I send it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love her.
I know. I just hired a VA too, and yesterday, literally after we got off the phone, and this woman's unbelievable. And she's like, yeah, I work all the time. I work on Saturday. If you want to meet on Saturday, I work 24 hours a day. I'm like, are you okay? And so. Yeah, I mean, and we need to talk about that stuff too, because, leveraging, you talk about how you struggle with leveraging. That is such an important thing. I will tell you that even my team will come to me and say that I can't outsource that. And I'm like, bullshit. I believe that you can leverage anything. It just depends, on how much complexity you want to get involved. But I'll ask always, you're telling me that if you sat on the phone for half an hour, you couldn't explain this in the full scope of the project. And they're like, yeah, I guess I could. Because you're going to save yourself 10 hours, 20, 30 hours.
Yeah, this seems like an intervention is what it seems.
Yeah, I do want to dive into this because delegation, I think, is really the most important thing. Finding these repeatable tasks and, setting them off so you can move the business forward. As I talked to Chris this morning, he's doing 1099s. I'm like, I love you, Chris. And I do, because
Chris was doing 1099s.
This guy makes it rain. I will tell you, this guy, I would not be anywhere near where I'd be without him. But how do you get somebody to delegate more? How are you delegating more? How do you find those tasks?
That's a good conversation.
When you're incredibly talented like Chris,
you want perfection all the time.
You can't
for everything.
It's hard to let that stuff go because I can do this. I'm like, I know you can do it. So I guess the question I always ask is, does this task require my unique expertise? And if it doesn't, I shouldn't be doing it. And that's a lot of tasks.
Because you have so many tasks, you're awesome.
There's some things, that are sensitive, maybe financial stuff and some other things that really you shouldn't be doing them, but you kind of have to do them. And I think that's just part of life as an entrepreneur. But most of the stuff, you would be shocked. And what you do is you just give parameters. So I'll give you an example. This morning, I delegated a duty to find me just a basic video editor on Upwork, and I used my Upwork employee to do that. And so I'll give her parameters. I'll say, I want it just to be basic editing, within this sort of price range. I don't really want anyone outside of the U.S. because if we need copy or anything or slides, the language thing can become a real problem in 10x the time that you need. And then I'll just say, pick the person that you think's appropriate and then pitch them to me. I don't want a list of people. I want the solution and why. And that saves a ton. So if you just give... I'll never forget, I was listening to Tony Robbins 20 years ago, and it was a little thing about he needed to get a birthday card or whatever for his kid, and he didn't have time. We were like, well, how can you outsource that? Well, he's like, look, go buy me five birthday cards that you think are cool. And then she brought him back, and then he just picked one. I mean, there's just tons and tons of ways to give them enough, wiggle room to get the thing done.
How do you... So this is somewhat of an intervention, is what it is. How do you? This is not just about my inability.
Difficult.
This is difficult. It's not just about me. It's an entrepreneurial problem. People have problems delegating. It's the reason why you have that attorney who's 73 years old, who's been the only attorney in his own firm forever. It's like, no one can do as good as me or as well as me, and no one can. I don't want to parallel, whatever. But how do you? Let's use your Upwork example. I bet that person's great. How do you trust someone you just met on Upwork that they know what you need for that next job?
Well, because the risk is very small, right? We're not giving them, I'm not telling them, hey, go buy me an apartment complex and then we'll figure it out. I mean, we start them off with kind of basic tasks to see what their thinking is like and whether we align. But we don't give enough credit to the average person. The average person can really be pushed to perform. And so that's what you've got to do. I mean, you do have to have some faith in it. And the VA I just signed now, she's researching CLE speaking opportunities for me, helping me get admitted to the Kansas bar, and finding me a video. Who gives a fuck? Okay, if she fucks it up, I'll just get someone else and start over again. It's not a life, it's not a life-changing thing. And we agreed that after 2 weeks, we'll sort of, analyze it, check out how we're doing. Are we working well? And if we are, we'll keep doing it.
So would you say checkpoints, iterations, timelines, all those things, and just
You got to find a way. So what I do is, number one, you got to find a way to centralize the tasks that she's working on.
Like a database or something?
So she uses Trello. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. I like it. I don't use it, but I know how to use it. What you don't want to do is have to spend any time assigning tasks. So, like these 3 things that I told her, we'll have a conversation over it or a text message or whatever. She puts it on the board, and then she puts it on the board and updates it. I don't do any of that. I'm not writing shit down because it can take forever to assign.
So you don't have to learn Trello just to teach her what you want.
Yeah, and I don't have to sit there typing out.
Yeah.
And but she knows the deadline. She knows when it needs to start and when it needs to end. And, that's what I do with everybody. I have tons of people that I leverage onto. It might be our front desk team it might be whoever else is on my team that's appropriate.
Nice.
But I really do think that if you're at your level, Colin, my level, you probably need a personal assistant. And, 15 hours, 20 hours a week. What I find is when I'm, doing what I'm doing, I'm sure you guys have a lot of these long meetings and stuff. You can't, I need to see a podiatrist, for example. I don't even have time to look for the providers and make an appointment. So somebody's got to do that for me. Otherwise, my life just does not move forward.
Right.
So
you, and I think that's basically where we're at, almost like an executive assistant type thing.
Yeah, it's an executive, but also who's handling personal, personal tasks for you. Those are the things that really I find take a lot of time and just kind of get me screwed up. Like, I'm admitted in 3 states to practice law, so I have to meet CLE, continuing legal ed, in 3 states. I need somebody to manage that for me and tell me, here's how many you need, here's how many you can do in person, here's how many, and then they'll submit it.
Yeah, they can log on and they can watch the webinar for you.
Well, that's a whole nother story. But yeah,
As long as they pass.
Yeah.
Delegation's huge. I think that's really important. Did you start with Upwork, or did you learn your way through that to find something like Upwork, and has that been good for you?
I just like it because, they've got the escrow thing where you pay money for the project into escrow, so you're not going to get screwed by someone. And the way that we've been doing it lately is I know kind of what my price point is, so I'll just search for people that are doing that. Then I'll find somebody that I think alike and reach out to them, see if they have capacity, and then I'll just create a private job. Like I have no interest in looking at 30 people, 50 people that are going to apply to the
I need
job.
a personal assistant to find me a personal assistant.
That's exactly true. My personal assistant is finding other people for me to leverage onto.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. You used your network, right, Colin?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Which is big too, because especially if you've been doing it in the legal world for a long time or real estate or wherever, you know others in your sphere of influence that may know who to find, and who you found's phenomenal. Not only from an experienced position, but she's already proven herself in 2 weeks?
Yeah. Well, actually, her first day was Monday. So the others were just trial tasks.
I'm like, I know we're business partners, but I'm just actually mad and jealous because she's phenomenal.
I know.
Which is what's good for you is good for me.
Yeah, exactly. It's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, right?
Morning routines.
Yeah.
What do you? I mean, it's not to be morning. It can be nighttime. It can be like, what are some of the things that help you disconnect and or better yourself as not only a business person but a personally? Like, what do you do to kind of keep you focused and centered?
I think morning routine is really crucial. Mine changes from time to time, kind of on what I'm really focused on. So I have 2 basic ones. The first one, which I like the most, is what I call no extra input or no outside input in the morning. And so rather than waking up and grabbing my phone or doing whatever, checking my email, I don't do any of that. So like the first hour is just getting up. I have a eating routine that I follow, and then whatever it is I'm going to do. And then
hold on. What's the eating routine?
Oh, I'm eating because I do a lot of weight training. I'm eating usually kind of a high protein, low carb breakfast, and maybe drinking a green drink or doing, what is it that I need to get me ready. And then I'll start the day. Now, I also have a routine that's, I think, a lot like yours, which is I literally just get out of bed and walk over to my stand. I get a cup of coffee and walk over to my standing desk, and I'm working within, 10 minutes of waking up. Then I work till about 9. Then I leave for work because now it's off traffic. So I've got to drive from Castle Pines to Denver. If I do that at rush hour, it's going to take me twice as long. So then I'm going to drive, after 9 o'clock. I'm going to get there half the time. I'm going to make some phone calls on the way, so I have no extra time spent. And that's a really great way. And then just kind of mentally prepare for the 2 or 3 or 1 huge thing that I know I've got to get done that day, and I'm going to tackle that first.
You work out in the evening or in the morning?
I work out really late, sometimes as late as midnight.
Really?
Yep. Partly because I'm not a morning workout person. Secondly, I hate working out with other people in the gym. I cannot stand watching people sitting on a bench looking at their fucking phone 20 minutes. And I'm like, are we done? Then I'm the asshole because it's this big guy who's pressuring you to get off the whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not what I'm doing. And so, yeah, when I go, so every gym I belong to is either open 24 hours or as a key fob.
Nice.
And anybody who's interested in this, look at Anytime Fitness because I travel a lot. So for $42 a month, you can essentially work out anytime you want in any city in the United States.
That's unreal.
Yeah, and it's not the greatest gym in the world, but I can get what I need done.
Or honestly, get it at home.
Yeah. How do you stay organized? So it sounds like, when you get up and you start work 10 minutes after you've gotten out of bed, is this from a previous list, or are you putting out fires and being reactive? I know some of it probably is both, but I don't know. How do you structure
What
it?
a loaded question. I'm not reactive. My planning starts on the weekend, either Friday or Sunday. And so what I've done is, and I would encourage everybody to do this, I think there are basic categories that apply to your business. And in mine, it's law firms are like 6 or 7 categories. One might be employee relations, finances, marketing. So I'm looking at all 3 firms under those same categories a week in advance, and then prioritizing where my time would be best spent. So I already have that list. And then, in the morning, I might, I just might have to look at what is it off that list that I'm actually focusing on. And I use Evernote a lot. All my notes are on my iPad electronically because I'm a huge note taker. And I think that that's key. All those thousands of little pieces of information, it's a great way to store those. Yeah. And then, then I manage a lot of teams and projects just through Google Docs because I like that because everyone can update it in real time. So, we went off site and created a 2023 vision for U.S. legal groups, all the firms. And now we're methodically going through that list and knocking those things off. And so anybody with the team, I hate to throw books out when I just said I'm not reading books anymore, but Scaling Up is another great book. And it's really the story of Infusionsoft it's as part of kind of where that came from. But what they talk about in that book is a rhythm of communication. You have to have a predictable rhythm of communication with your team. So I took my exec and ops team, and every Friday morning for about an hour to an hour and a half, we're meeting about where we are and what's happening the next week. I started doing that last year because I'm very anti-meeting. I hate meetings, unless they're absolutely necessary.
All entrepreneurs do.
But what I found was a weekly meeting drastically cut down the time that I had to spend because, it's like, okay, it's late Wednesday afternoon and I've got an issue. Well, I've got to send an email to like 10 people on my team, but I don't because I know that on Friday morning I have time to talk about it. So I'm not even going to bother doing that. I hate those like 10-person email chains. There's a perfect way to do it. We all check in. Where are we? Who's doing what? When's it due? And then we check it off when it's done. So we have a huge vision for 2023 and we're doing it all. And I told my team that. So
watching you grow has been sweet. That's implementing a meeting like that would be pretty huge. I'm sure you're probably doing that with your
Somewhat, but I really like the planning stage and also how you broke it out into kind of your 3 big things. You've got the employees, employee relations, finances, and marketing, and building everything off of that. Because really, for you as the CEO, the owner, those are the key areas that you can influence the most, correct?
Yeah. I believe that my job is purely to set the vision for the company. And I believe that everyone else's job is to execute my vision. And that sounds like kind of a dick move, but that really is what it is. When you're the CEO, it's your vision that's getting executed. And everyone underneath needs to understand what that is. They need to be on board with it. They need to be excited. And quite frankly, sometimes you got to kind of market to your own team. You know, you've got to get them on board. So we went to Arizona. We went to Scottsdale, which is really sweet, by the way.
Yeah.
I had never been there.
No, it's awesome.
They've got like more restaurants there than in Manhattan.
It's great. It's one of my favorite
700
places.
restaurants.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
We had a blast, but we spent 2 really, intense days mapping, and we had already met with all the other attorney teams to figure out where we were, where we were going to go. Then we mapped it all out with the ops team and the marketing team. Then I had to preview that to the entire organization. Then we had an hour-and-a-half meeting, by Zoom, which is not my preferable thing, but about what this was actually going to look like. So people are not surprised. They know, hey, we're opening in Colorado Springs. It's coming. Like, don't fucking come crying to me when this happens, because I told you this was happening, and everything else that we're doing. And so, you do have to align your team. It's sort of the part that I hate the most, because I feel like, I'm Sam Walton or something, like, okay, let's do, whoa, and it's like, but our meetings are not like that. They're like, this is what we're doing, and I'm not kidding around, and they know we're going to execute it. And they really seem to appreciate it. And another good tool for anybody that's running a team is a product that I call, and there's a lot of them that are like this, but I use one called Loom. And Loom allows me to just quickly shoot a video to the team and then publish it to the team. And that's been huge.
That's been huge for us too. I use that to train someone to implement something to software or whatever. I just record myself doing it, like a Zoom. I record myself doing it and say, watch this. This is how you do it. That's a quick way to train someone.
And then you never have to do it again, by the way. You have all those videos already ready.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Ready for the final 3?
Yes, sir.
Oh, no.
CNC's final 3. I will start off with this one. What has been, this is once again a loaded question, but what's been one of your biggest challenges as building this business? What's something that you've been like, you wanted to bang your head against the wall, but you figured out a solution for?
I think it's, staying focused and having enough momentum to scale. So what happens is in this industry, and this is where we experience this the most, something that we normally don't, is during the pandemic, where we had a lot of turnover, for various reasons. And so when you're on a trajectory and you're hit, and the problem with my business is that I have all high earning and highly compensated employees. So when I lose an attorney, I lose tens of thousands of dollars in revenue that has to be replaced. And if you let that get you down, you just have to say, okay, thank you, I appreciate it. And that day you're recruiting, So that's been really, really the thing. It's to stay on track, because I see so many people get knocked down, and then their answer is just like, fuck this. I'm not going to do this. It's just going to be me. I'm not going to have any associates. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm tired of this. Well, that's what it is to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
The ones that stand, like, we just do everything we can. When we get knocked down, we just start punching back. I mean, that's all you can do. But that has been the biggest challenge, I think.
Yeah, that mind shift shoes. If you want to be an employee and just have it nothing ever change, and just know you can come in 8 to 5 or whatever, then that's the way to go. But you're going to have a lot of those battles as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Yeah. What's the first thing you would do, whether it's a plumber, electrician, attorney, real estate? What's the first thing you would do as an entrepreneur to help yourself get out of the employee mindset? Or what's the first thing you do to help thrust somebody into that, opening their mind that there's things out there other than just being an employee?
Well, I mean, it's to have them connect with their why. Like, why do you want to do that? So when you look at people's New Year's resolutions, for example, and we all know that like 3% or 7% of people actually accomplish what they've set out to do. The reason for that is they don't have a big enough why. So where I see a lot of change happening just naturally is when someone's really frustrated. So when someone comes to me and they're really frustrated, I always tell them, this is really exciting, because this is when change happens. So what you want to do is have people sit down and say, if I were able to do that, what would my life look like? Okay, I could send my kids to private school. I could take vacations whenever I wanted. I could buy the stuff for my spouse that I wanted. I could, all the stuff that's going to get you, because then when you're out there and that stuff happens that's tough to deal with, you don't give up. When you don't have a big why, you're like, I'm going to run 10 miles every day. And then in that first mile, it hurts like hell. Like, fuck this, because you don't have a big enough why.
Right.
I accomplish everything essentially on that I set out to do. There's one thing that's sitting on there that's been sitting on my list for 10 years, learn Spanish. Why? Because I don't have a reason.
Okay.
I'm not in any pain not speaking Spanish. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So until I have that, and I'm thinking about some ways to make it painful, it's just never going to happen.
And maybe that's why I've never learned to play piano. I can't figure out why.
Why would
be
you?
great? You'd be
I'm
great.
gonna play the cello.
Don't you have a piano? Your house just
I
looks
could
like
play
it
like
should have a piano.
memorized songs. I can't read music or anything, but
Yeah.
I have one if you don't mind.
go for it.
What would you, so people usually ask, what would you do differently? But I'm going to rephrase this. What would you have leaned in more to in your journey as an entrepreneur and building these businesses? What's like a skill set or something that you looking back, you're like, man, that's something that I take away that like was really successful, but could have been even more successful if I dived into it.
I think that it would just be starting with a bigger vision, starting with a bigger scope. Like when I started, because I was so young and not used to this, and this is why I like to talk to young entrepreneurs, I just wanted to have a practice. I just wanted to make a couple $100,000 like that. I thought if I could do that, holy shit, my life would be great, right? And so I didn't realize that what I was just doing was working to a finite market cap. And so, the average person would just be running this practice in New Mexico, but it wasn't enough for me, but I didn't have anywhere to go. So I had to create this very weird, multi-firm system that actually allows us to outperform our competitors because of the scale, the ability to take advantage of the scaling of it. So if I could do it all over, I'd have a bigger vision with the criteria that I talked about before: national, international, leveraged, all of that stuff.
That's great.
Think bigger, quicker.
Well, okay, so I wanted to talk about one more thing that relates to this, because it's the opposite of this, but it also creates a lot of problems, I think, for young entrepreneurs. And so, like some of the people that are out there today, like we both follow Grant Cardone, we like some of the stuff that he says, but this dude is about like 10xing everything, 10x this and 10x that. And it's like, you know what? Honestly, you probably don't need that. When you look at where you want to be, it's not necessary to make $1 billion or $10 million, or you can have a phenomenal life way lower than that. And I know what that takes. I've 10x'd my business, literally 10x'd my revenue. And it took me a long time. And if I was a lot of these guys, like the number is so big and it's so disheartening that I don't think they make any progress. And so you kind of got to balance that. You have to have a big dream, but it's got to be somewhere within some kind of reach.
There is so much relatability to real estate in that. I get asked, I was just at a mastermind with a lot of high-level people. There are some 9 and 10-figure people there. There's guys in the crowd just asking me, well, what do you think I hear about from Grant Cardone of, I got to go out and buy a 200-unit rental complex. I'm like, well, what have you done? Well, I flipped a couple houses. I'm like, man, there's a lot of basics there, and there's a lot of downward possibilities from that. You buy a duplex and you fail, okay, that's maybe a couple $100,000. You buy 200 units, that's $30 million that you're putting at risk there because you heard it's better and you heard you can scale more at it. And that is the fear that nobody talks about. They talk about the upside when you have to be practical about your knowledge and your ability to do it, to understand the downside, because there is possibilities for downside in everything.
Well, yeah. And the other thing that I would tell you is that you've got to mitigate downside risk. If you can't mitigate downside risk, if you say we do this and if we fail, we fail. That's never something that I do. Like I found myself in that situation in Colorado because we took an SBA loan, for a little over $500,000 to launch that practice. And we had budgeted to lose $50,000 a month over 6 months until we turned cash positive. Now, that's great to see on paper, but every month when you're seeing that, it is scary as hell. It is absolutely frightening. And we didn't really have much mitigation on the downside there, other than we thought that we could break even at some point, and I didn't need extra income. So I really just needed to get to break even. So that was kind of my mitigation. But when my friends pitch me some kind of deal they're going to do, and they have no way to manage downside risk, I just kind of say, we better look at this again, because
What's your exit strategy is always a good question. What's your exit strategy in a certain situation? If there's no exit strategy, okay, well, there should be, because there are many things that could happen.
Well, I heard someone say one time, no matter how far down a path you've gone, it's never too late to turn around. And I think that's what you do. You know, when it's dead, this is not a viable idea, you need to stop. You know, you're just going to keep throwing more money after, bad money after good. And so that's what I've seen. And it sucks. I mean, it's just not easy.
I think mitigating the risk is big, and you got to be smart about how quickly you're jumping. But gosh dang, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah.
It's great getting you down here in the studio, and I'm sure this will happen again, especially with you in town so much. But I do want to thank you for this opportunity. There's no way I could have been where I'm at without that flexibility and transparency as a full-time attorney to be able to then segue into what we've built here as businesses. So that's a big thanks. And just obviously the motivation as an entrepreneur, that's been huge for me. And I think there's something huge to take away here. And I know we've lived it. I don't know if we've spoken it as much. I've heard you speak it a little bit, but we want the same thing for people we work with as well. I mean, we've partnered, like you have with the marketing gentleman. We've partnered with a number of our employees. We've suggested to jump into this or jump into that, and we can help or whatever, because we never want to hold somebody back. You want to watch somebody grow. It's nice to watch that you've embodied the Multipliers book without even reading it. So,
well, I have to say, and this is not bullshit. I mean, to come here and see what you're doing just absolutely thrills me. I mean, to see you building this, to come down and I was like, we're going to have this rinky dinky dude with like a cell phone or whatever. I'm like, I don't know what Parmalou's got it on. I'm just open to it. And so to see this and to see the level that you've scaled and to see your employees and everything, I mean, it's absolutely thrilling to me. So congratulations to both of you guys. It was nice to finally meet you. I've heard a lot about you, and anytime. And we've got a bunch of stuff we're going to be doing that you can come out, especially when we start, doing our podcast for attorneys. That'd be a good place for you guys to be on and talking to some of these people, because they're looking for ways to invest their money, and this is a good one.
David, how does everybody get a hold of you?
The easiest way to kind of look at what I'm doing is on Instagram, which is it's David Crum ESQ. And then, probably the best way to just reach out to me by email is just my first name, david@coloradolegalgroup.com. That's kind of my main email. So yeah. And I love to talk, honestly, I know people don't believe this, but if you're an entrepreneur and you want to reach out and you want to chat a little bit, I love it.
$4.95 an hour. That's what Chris used to charge me.
$9.95 an hour. No, man, free of charge. I have people all the time. I coach, I charge for my coaching for attorneys, but some young person or some person who's getting started, I've had lunch with people and they sit there and they tell me what they're going to do. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? It's a perfect business plan. Just talked to an attorney who was going to start. He was really nervous. And then in like a year, he had 10 attorneys working for him.
That's awesome.
I'm like, just do it. I'm like, this is great. So yeah.
Just 10X it.
Just 10X it. 10X everything, brother.
Awesome. Thanks, David. I appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.